Hello beloveds, this is Stephanie Parasha, Divine Light, coming out to you from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm going to make a start on this video. I may have to pause it, but I just really wanted to share some of the lovely information that's floating down, being transmitted to me. I've made a few notes and I'm going to make an attempt to bring it together in some way. There's quite a bit of information. The theme of this energy update at present for twin flames and lightworkers is essentially it's all about energy and vibration and frequency, and that even just the way that I'm talking to you now, I'm being very, very conscious of really slowing down and shifting my vibration into a much higher state, which involves weirdly actually slowing down. And so it's slower and it's higher, so frequency, I guess. I'll make a start and starting to explain what I'm talking about in terms of quantum energy and how I started to become curious about emotion again and keep going back to that subject, and why is emotion as energy in motion so important, and why don't we know enough about it in terms of how we can measure it, how it affects the way in which we operate as humans and how we function, and how the emotion, the energy in motion connects with the mind and the consciousness and the spirit and the body, in order to, for that to collaborate together to create, I guess, what is called the vibration and the frequency that we emit, or which, the closest we can get to it is that hertz, which is the number of waves per second that can be measured as it looks on a graph. And I'm going to try and explain this, but it's quite scientific. And again, I'm like, why do you guys always try and fill my head with really scientific stuff? And I don't really understand it. And they're like, that's why we do it, so that you can bring it down to the level that, basically is science, or quantum physics for dummies. So the waves either go in high frequency, which is lots of waves per second, which is a high hertz, number of hertz, or low frequency, which is less number of waves per second. So hertz is basically the measured amount of waves that you'd see like on a screen per second. And then they decide how powerful that wave is in terms of electromagnetics, or in terms of how being able to read that on a screen. It's voltage in terms of how much power it is as to how high those waves actually go on the screen and how they look. And then low voltage, obviously the lower are the waves and they kind of flatline. And then you've got amps, which is the strength of the waves, whether those waves are coming out like, quite loud. I guess I'm getting in the speaker, seeing, you put on the speakers the number of amps is the stronger and louder is the sound, and the vibration, it sort of pushes through the speakers and makes them vibrate really a lot. So that kind of there explains in itself, and how that's, I guess, related to sound. And then I get trying to explain that back into terms of how it translates into the body's energy field and is kind of transmitted, I guess, by our body as a tuning fork in some sense, where that information is translated into our central nervous system, which then translates it into our brain, and then central nervous system fires off all these electrics. Anyway, I can't, and then, excuse me, that was just my water bottle popping, that noise, sorry about that. So I guess it was trying to tell me to slow down, because I'm getting kind of, this stuff really makes my brain really busy. Oh yeah, and then in terms of your vibration, well, that's probably what they were trying to get me to look at, was there's also another measurement of the smoothness and the regularity. So you've got sort of a chaotic type irregular vibrational pattern, and then you've got a smooth, kind of soft, flowing, kind of almost homeostatic line, which just is quite regular. It's got a regular pattern. So I guess, well, as twin flames, or as, the evolving human, the goal is that our vibration, I guess, is, of a good strength, that it's regular, that that we calm, in order to be calm and peaceful and those, kinds of vibrations, that's kind of more, I guess, on a positive, there's another aspect to this, the positive and the negative. So you could see that if you were measuring someone's emotions in terms of their emotional state, you would say when somebody's depressed or sad or sick, they're going to feel low and they've got a low vibration and heavy. And then you've got someone that's happy and they're going to be of a high frequency with more power and strength, and that's going to give them a high vibration. And the voltage is probably going to be high, so therefore you've got more energy, in essence. You've got high energy and low energy. So, and again, this is all on a spectrum as we're looking at this from our dualistic, polarised way of looking at the world. And again, we've got spectrums within that as well of where... Anyway, so then I've written down, I'm sure this is kind of related to it, but I know this is all kind of related and I want to get to sort of a point, but I guess it's just kind of trying to explain energy to people where some understanding of it is going to go in to the brain and resonate and receive, so that we can understand that as humans we're in a real pull at the moment in terms of our energy states. And, I talked about that in the last video, how to me it feels like quite a tug of war, and that tension's pulling between the different rates. And, we're in amidst that. And then I saw this kind of I did a bit of research on this week, and I saw it kind of as a video explained that, when there's lots of, again, this relates back to the magnetics and the attraction of the energy field that you'd be emitting in terms of your vibration, how that relates to the law of attraction and magnetizing towards you, obviously the energetic field that will resonate with yours. So again, you're just going to be, whatever you're thinking, it's that thought, consciousness, emotion, feeling, again, all put together to create your overall vibration, which attracts. And it's that same information. We've kind of been presented to it in so many different ways. For some of us it sinks in, for some of us it's kind of, we don't necessarily want to take too much responsibility for it, but again, it does ultimately come down to that choice in terms of how we choose to be. And that's not saying, look, I choose to be, really powerful and strong and just be the boss of the world. It might be that you choose to be more flexible and surrender. And I was talking about that in my last video too, where you might be at varying stages along a spectrum, and we don't necessarily need to judge either one either. And that's another thing that humans do, is we like to sort of judge something as good or bad and polarize it. But I guess at some point it's recognizing the chaotic nature of energy when it sort of gets to that vibration, and you'll know, being a sensitive being, that when you're around energy that is chaotic or disruptive or loud or angry, that if you're tending towards the other end of the spectrum with your energy, you kind of won't resonate with it, and you'll probably feel like you want to move away. And I guess for me that gave me almost a justification of it being okay to discern my energy field and what I received into it and what I repelled away from it. That, that if I just saw everything as energy and felt everything as energy, then, but I guess, and in terms of if you're wanting to absorb or include in a lower energy into your higher energy field, you would probably need to be vibrating at a certain rate of strength and speed and height and power to be able to maintain that vibration before you would be strong enough to affect the other energies around you. And I sort of again have touched on this in previous videos, and I've also kind of studied it at various times throughout my life. And it's just sort of really interesting seeing it coming back around again in terms of being important to this part of the journey. And I mean, it's been part of our whole journey for the whole time, but I guess what we're getting more and more is we really, really, really need to pay attention to this message and really, really, really work on our vibration. We really, really need to tune into this now, because we are actually, the other bigger part of it is because we're kind of going into a tension bandwidth that may very well kind of explode on itself or decombust or something, you know, where that tension wire just gets and we explode out into sort of creating another little microcosm of energy when certain amounts of chaotic energy become too much. And that to me feels like the timeline split. And I had been talking in my previous video about the toroidal fields of these energies and their little microcosms, and I finally saw it in another Lightworkers video, a woman called Sandra Walter, who wrote about, she spoke about the timeline shift being related to the toroidal fields. Anyway, I found that really fascinating. I'm just going to have to pause here and come back to this because I've got to go and do something, and I'll be back very shortly. Hello, beloveds. This is part 2 of this message. I just had a wee break and had to cook some dinner and make some food for tomorrow because I'm going to a friend's birthday party, and I'm making some beautiful gluten-free vegan food. So anyway, right now, so back on track with in terms of the energy and the vibration and those things that I was talking about. So I just wanted to kind of talk about how that translates into the human experience and how we experience this either resonant energy with our energy vibration or non-resonant energy, which is obviously kind of disturbing to our energy field, and why some people are, you know, they don't click or they don't vibrate at the same, so they kind of repel each other. There's that repelling energy that goes on, and so kind of getting down, to that level and seeing how also the negative energies can become kind of quite parasitic in some sense, and also kind of attack, I guess, in many ways, the mind and the will and the emotions in terms of the energy output, perhaps of like a young child that perhaps may have faced one of the most difficult human emotions to have to face as a young child in the early years of development is being rejected by a parent, for example, and that creates kind of like a harsh vibration, or things that have been harsh as a young child growing up become very hurtful and painful and create those wounds that I often talk about in my recordings, but I'm just kind of making it relate back to energy. So what happens to the emotions is they sort of don't, and the energy of the body is it becomes very sensitive to criticism when one has been hurt or wounded or been abused or rejected, because that soul, that being, that energy form has been exposed to an energy that's told it that it's wrong, that it's bad, and it's no good. So as a child growing up and receiving those messages, to be told you're wrong and bad and good, no good, obviously we know what energy, what it looks like when we give those messages to, like the water experiment, for example. When we give those messages to water, they turn, the molecules of the water turn really in a bad formation. And then when they're told something beautiful, that your peace and your calm and your love, the energy changes and the molecules change and the pattern changes of that water, and it becomes a different energetic signature. So in that case, the same things are happening to us and as humans, and just to kind of reiterate that and reinforce that more so that we really understand that message, so that we can understand when we're faced with somebody that is perhaps carrying an energy form that we kind of recognize on some way, but we don't really necessarily resonate with. We have those reflections when we meet another person as well. We have a reflection that goes on where we feel what's in them is also, well, we don't often know, it's unconscious, is in us, or that part of us that's not resonating in us, that we're perhaps, where we've got the wound and we're trying to hide, it becomes, it's reflected in that other person. We see it, but we don't like it. So remembering that when we're, one of the major parts of healing, the anecdote that I often talk about is I always talk about self-love, but there's something that I've actually been missing a lot in my journey, and what I'd really like to reiterate and bring home is that the major energy vibration of healing is forgiveness, for healing hurt. So I got shown this to me recently when a friend of mine, we were having a discussion around religion and Christianity and Jesus Christ, and I was speaking to her about what had been happening to me recently as a person growing up as an atheist and agnostic, that Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit has been communicating with me in a way that, I never would have understood if I'd been brought up with the knowledge of the Bible, because I wouldn't be able to, I guess I would have a different perspective. So when it comes to me as someone who's, I guess I see myself as spiritual, maybe scientific, when I receive that energy, it's just so beautiful. And my friend was telling me about experience when Jesus was in the process of being nailed to the cross and crucified, and prior to that he was receiving lashes, and she was telling me about that. And as she talked about those lashes, I felt Jesus come very close to me, and I get quite emotional when I feel Jesus, because his energy is so beautiful and so loving and so powerful, and the lessons that he brings are just amazing, and you just know, like, wow. And he, according to the Bible story, he was healing those wounds very quickly, and they were going as soon as they were on his body, and those people were getting angrier and lashing him more. And so Jesus told me, do you know why I was able to heal so quickly? And I said, no, what was it? And he said, forgiveness, because I immediately forgave those people for the wounds that they caused me, and because I knew that they were essentially beating themselves, but I am them, they're beating themselves. So I guess the lesson in that for us is, when it feels like somebody else is attacking us or criticizing us, that actually really just reflecting that out, and it's what's in them, and they're putting it on you. And the only way to really, I know this is going to come across to some people, and especially lately when I've been talking a lot about, these narcissists that you've kind of got to be really careful of, essentially, but only when we get to the right level in terms of our own self-forgiveness, of our own times when we've gone against ourselves, which is what I believe to be sin, is when we have betrayed ourselves in order to put another person first. When we have reached that state within ourselves, we have forgiven ourselves for all of those times when we have taken on the criticism of others and turned it into our own self-criticism, self-hatred, making ourselves wrong and bad. Until we have healed that within ourselves, we will not be able to forgive another. So that part of the journey of the vibration of healing those discordant and wounded and hurt energies of pain of the self that relate to those negative thoughts, forgiveness every time is really important. So just before I finish up, I don't want to make this too long. I want to try and get it hopefully under 20 minutes. That I'm getting a big message about the timeline shifts. I think I mentioned that was coming through I heard a really good message from Sandra Walter, and that things was going to start shifting and changing really quickly. Like, we're really quantum leaping, and I got shown how that works in a diagram where we go from A to B, and it's got like, you don't experience anything in between. It's like such a shift that you have made, but you didn't realise that you made it because you travelled, rather than the old Newtonian way, travelling between 2 points in time and taking a long time to get there. Like, for example, driving from A to B, and then it's kind of like flying. You pretty much don't touch the ground. You quantum leap, and it's such a shift. You kind of go, oh, this is weird, I don't feel like that fits me anymore. And so a lot of people are going to start feeling like, oh, that just seems so old to me, and I can't even believe how I would have that in my life. And there's just going to be mass shedding of amounts of energy that is just no longer suitable for your life, and that is going to represent itself as physical matter. So for a lot, it's going to be decluttering, shifting, moving, changing jobs, a lot of shifting and changing from this quantum jump across the timelines, which is really amping up the date. I'm really being told is 7th of August, which is going to be a big preparation day for many Lightworkers. So just make sure as we're leading up to that 7th of August, which is in roughly just over a week's time. We've got a week to just really tune in here and be very conscious about our vibrations and, be really, really conscious. Conscious is the key, really, just using our consciousness to, check in every moment with the vibration, where you're at, what you're producing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and the energy that you're putting out, your energetic signature to the world. Think about those pictures of the snowflakes, how the water changes into those shapes. Would you like to imprint that beautiful, energetic, geometric pattern onto the earth, or would you, continue to let yourself be affected by those negative thought patterns that are of a lower frequency? So, we're really moving into that high vibration now, and I hope you can feel it. It feels really positive. I think, those that are in this energy are really feeling powerful right now. And again, relates back to the energy, the power, the willpower to continue to be positive and to uplift each other, as well as we join together, those light workers, the big group of us that are turning those lights on and amping up that voltage and the power. So, okay, well, I think that's about it. I'm just having a quick look over my notes. I'm still seeing that word forgiveness jumping out at me. So, yeah, keep on with that, and I will catch up with you all again very soon. I'm sending you out lots and lots of beautiful divine love and beautiful bright divine light, and anchoring in those beautiful frequencies that are here also with us to help us. We're getting a lot of that sent down too, and I've been seeing those beautiful light codes coming in as well that are helping us. Oh yes, so the 7th will be the date for preparing for the 8 lines gate, which will be a massive opening portal for us to all walk into creating more and more of these new timelines and dimensions, dropping away of the old. And then again, the next phase will be leading into the eclipse. So I'll be with you all again before then. And bye for now. Thank you for listening. Bye.